AdamandJP.com.
Right now.
Exploring the multiverse of pop culture.
This is Pod Casserole.
An Adam and JP show.
Hey, welcome to the Pod Casserole. I guess this is kind of like our summer series where we have Intern Barrett in. It's our bonus episodes. Once again, Saturday morning. We're doing. I can't remember the last time I recorded on Saturday morning.
Feel so Saturday morning, so we should have like cartoons playing or something.
Well, I was going to say, it kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid. Saturday morning, we're going to get up, we're going to hang out, we're going to talk about superheroes. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a heads up, it is summer in Tennessee, and it's very warm in our garage studio. So we do have the big garage door open. So you're going to hear people mowing their grass. You're going to hear birds. You're going to hear traffic. You're going to hear the occasional weed eater.
It's ambiance. We'll call it ambiance.
Yes, exactly. It's the summer ambiance.
People listen to stuff like this to fall asleep. Or so I've heard.
So, Intern Barrett, welcome back.
Yes, it's good to be back.
Rave reviews from your last episode from not only listeners, but also family members of this podcast,
Yes.
Adam in particular.
I got the pod chops.
Apparently, you have the pod chops.
So I've been told.
And I do want that to be your Twitter handle or something. You're going to have to create like pod chops.
Hashtag pod chops.
So what have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
I think the better question is, what haven't I been up to in the last couple of weeks? I've made it out to the movies a couple times. I saw, first of all, Deadpool 2.
Thoughts?
That's a good question. I can't give, there's a lot of stuff, of course, I can't go into without getting into heavy spoilers. And, of course, I don't believe you or Adam have seen it.
I haven't seen it. I don't think he has either. At least not as the last episode we recorded.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to be vague about my thoughts naturally, but I very much liked it. It felt a lot more comic booky than the first one, but in a good way. That's a positive for me. Might not be for some people, but for me, I enjoyed having a lot more characters and references from the comics. Don't know that I'd say it's quite as funny as the first one, but it's still hilarious. There were quite a few laugh out loud moments for me, including several cameos from actors that you may not expect, to the point where at one point during the movie there was like one blink and you miss it moment where a certain actor shows up, and I just turned to my mom in the theater and I was like, is that insert actor name here? I think it was.
Now, there's a rumor that there's a cameo from an actor who's already made a cameo in a superhero movie.
Yes, that is accurate.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And also there is, I actually know what, I'm not going to say that. All I'm going to say is there are characters in this movie who were not featured in the trailers. And I was actually spoiled on one of those characters before I saw the movie, but it ended up not being like the big reveal of the movie.
I hear that Domino is the standout of this movie.
Yes, she and Cable are definitely the best new additions to the cast. Although there are several, including, I'm sure you've been seeing from the trailers and stuff, the new X-Force team, which includes
Peter.
Yes, Peter, Sugar Bear. Peter's the best, and also Terry Crews as Bedlam. So. Yeah, like, look forward to seeing him, definitely.
And without spoiling anything, too, because I do know a lot about this, even though I haven't seen it.
Oh.
I also understand that if you follow the early comic stories of the X-Force, or even the original comic story of the X-Force, it follows that story all the way through.
I'm not really a X-Force expert, so I can't say anything about that. I'm not much of a Liefeld fan, sorry.
Oh, me neither. Yeah, too many pouches.
Oh, that reminds me. Have you seen, like, on Twitter and Instagram, like, he's been posting drawings of his new character, The Pouch.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he created that in the 90s. Liefeld.
He's gotten self-aware about it, though.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that.
He's self-aware now after he's been, he's such a genius over the last 20 years. I'm like, no. Novelty, yes. Genius, no.
I, for one, am welcoming this new era of self-referential Liefeld.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure. I won't ask you that because that will be a spoiler. But what I mean by the X-Force is that the story wraps up exactly how the original X-Force story wraps up in the comics.
Well, I have no idea how that happens, so
Yeah.
I can't say anything about that.
Okay. But any other thoughts on it?
The post-credit scene is the best part of the movie.
That's what I've heard.
I can't tell you anything.
Uh-huh.
I cannot tell you a single thing about what happens. Just look forward to it. That's all I can say.
So, in your opinion, fun, enjoyable, but not as good as the original.
I don't know about that. I think it's equal because I compare it to Guardians 1 versus Guardians 2.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
I think the first one is overall the funnier and it's much more streamlined story, but the second one I think the second one in both cases has the better story and it has a lot more heart and emotional depth to it.
That's exactly how I felt about that. I thought the second Guardians was a much better story than the original Guardians of the Galaxy, even though probably on the whole, as a movie, the first Guardians is funnier, maybe more enjoyable, more fun to watch.
Yeah.
But the second, the sequel story, to me, is a much better story
Yes.
with ego and all of that.
And it has more yondu, which is always a good thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Maybe we'll get some prequels as we go along.
Waking up.
Any other Deadpool thoughts?
No, that's about it for Deadpool, but I also saw another movie, which would be Solo.
A Star Wars story.
Yes.
And a very divisive film. It was
I
probably only you in the theater watching it.
it was simultaneously one of the biggest crowds I've seen in my local theater, while also not being a very big crowd at all.
Right.
For like a really big theater.
Yeah.
But by Nowheresville, Tennessee standards, it was a big turnout.
Everybody came out to watch the Star Wars, y'all.
Yep. Like that Arrested Development joke. Here's somebody go see a Star Wars.
So, what's your Solo thoughts?
I loved it. Like, I know that I understand that it's not for everyone. I would not recommend it to, say, the other person who's on this podcast, for instance. But although I'm sure even if I did recommend it to him, he wouldn't see it anyway.
You never know. He eventually watched Justice League. Eventually.
But Solo is way better than Justice League, though. I can say that for sure. I think it really does a good job capturing the spirit of I wouldn't say the original Star Wars in general, but New Hope specifically. It has that similar lighthearted, fun, swashbuckling space opera feel to it. And there's a lot of fun world building, exploring new corners of the Star Wars universe that haven't been focused on before, especially the underworld aspect. And so it's a lot of fun seeing new villains that aren't the Empire and kind of exploring the underground, grim and gritty crime side of the Star Wars universe. And I think that I forget the actor's name, but the new Han is great. I think obviously nobody can match Harrison Ford, but if you had to get somebody to play young Han Solo, and I think they got the right actor to play
Right.
him. And that's not even getting into childish Landino. Donald Glover as Lando, who is just absolutely perfect. He is the best part of the movie, bar none. Like, he perfectly captures all of Billy D. Williams' mannerisms, his way of speaking. Like, he is young Lando, like plain and simple.
Is it fun or unnecessary to see some of the stuff that you heard about in Han's past play out on screen?
I think it was very fun.
Okay.
Anyone who's saying, "Oh, we didn't need to see this movie," I would tend to disagree. I think I really wanted to see this movie, even if it didn't need to exist. Because I mean, like, if you want to go that route, then does the sequel trilogy need to exist? Does Rogue One need to exist? Do any the prequels need to exist? Like, a lot of people would say no, and like, honestly, like, what's the point in arguing about that? The movies are here. They exist. Might as well have fun with them, you know?
Right. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm going to go see.
Yeah.
I will see both of these films eventually, but I just haven't yet.
Final verdict on Solo. Like, I think I'd put it in my top 5 Star Wars movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe top 5. It's like Empire is number 1, New Hope, Last Jedi. Because I'm a Last Jedi fan. Like, I'm sorry.
I enjoyed The Last Jedi.
I know it's not like I think it's like it's top 3 for me. I'm sorry. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's only one scene in Last Jedi that I didn't like.
Which one was that?
The Force Leia flying, Mary Poppins Leia.
I thought that was awesome. Like, I know it's cheesy, but like, it's Star Wars. Star Wars is cheesy.
Yeah, and I mean, and we can get into a whole discussion about this. I mean, maybe just the way it was shot, I didn't like. Maybe the way that it looked, I didn't like. The concept, I'm not 100% against because I tend to lean to the argument that we always see new things the Force can do.
Yeah.
In just about every Star Wars movie. You find out something different that you can do if you're Force sensitive or you have harnessed the power of the Force. But there was something about that scene that I just like,
I can respect that, but personally I disagree just because I'm glad we got a moment of Leia using the Force because that was something that was implied at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And we never got to see any of it in The Force Awakens. So I'm glad that, especially now that Carrie Fisher has passed, she did get one big moment of actually using the Force.
But and this is going to sound very callous, but they missed an opportunity right there in that scene to remedy the situation, the Leia of it all. Like, what do you do going forward? Because you don't have Carrie Fisher for the next movie.
I think they're going to do a time skip between Last Jedi and Episode 9, whatever it may be called. I think they're going to skip forward a few years to show Rey actually rebuilding a new Jedi Order, which was implied at the very end of Last Jedi with the little kid on Canto Bight using the Force to summon the broom.
Right.
So I think that's what we're going to skip 40 New Years, see Rey with the beginnings of a new Jedi Order, and the Resistance finally rebuilding to prepare for the final battle against the First Order. So
you think you'll see a time jump like you did in between Empire and Return of the Jedi?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe it will even open with Leia's funeral.
Yep, that would make sense too. That would be convenient. Anything else about Solo?
Nope. It was great. Be careful to watch out for spoilers though, because there's a big twist that don't think anybody could have seen coming.
Yeah,
and definitely try to avoid any knowledge about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard.
There's a really big moment. Like, that's all I'm going to say. Just
really. Does it tie into the original trilogy?
It ties in. There's an unexpected character who shows up.
Oh, Jabba the Hutt?
I can't say who. I cannot tell you who. Don't please stop asking because I cannot tell you.
Is it the Sarlacc pit?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but this isn't going to get you anywhere. Spoilers are spoilers.
But I'm trying to read the response on your face, like we're playing cards. Is it? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
It's Chewbacca's family from the holiday special.
Oh, well. As long as Lumpy's in there, I'm all about it. B. Arthur.
So there's the connection. Deadpool loves B. Arthur. B. Arthur was in Star Wars. Everything's connected.
That's true. It is all connected.
Under the great circle of Disney.
Did you see anything else?
Well, I saw U2 for one thing.
Oh, let's talk about the U2 concert.
Yeah, I know.
What's the name of this tour?
The Experience and Innocence tour, which is of course a reference to the last two albums, which were 2017's Songs of Experience and 2014-15, I want to say, Songs of Innocence, which was the free one that they released on iTunes, and a lot of people got mad because they didn't want a U2 album, but Personally, I was okay with it because, oh, hey, new U2 album. I already own it.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I got mad because I didn't want a calculator on my phone when I bought it.
I don't know.
I don't see the Twitter outrage for that.
I don't know why having a calculator on your phone would be a bad thing. Sometimes you just gotta do some math, and you don't want to try. But
Yeah.
You don't want to put any effort into it.
Yeah, a lot of people delete their podcast app off their phone.
Well, they are missing out.
They really are.
Because they need to eat their Pod Casserole.
That's true,
That's
they
what
do.
they need to do.
I got mad because, I didn't want an iBooks app on my phone when I got it. And Apple just put that. How dare you, Apple, put an iBooks app on my phone?
Hello, it's just a worse Kindle.
Well, take me back to this concert. How was it?
It was absolutely fantastic. I know you said that. I know you told me last time to look forward to it because it's going to be something special, but you were absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
There was a brief moment at the beginning because they opened with "Love Is All We Have Left," which is the opener for Songs of Experience, and then they went into the Blackout, also off the new album. So even though it was a really awesome opening because you start off with it's called the Blackout, so it's all the lights are off and you just see the animated screen that they have showing different visuals for all the songs, and you just see the silhouettes of the four members: Bono, Edge, Larry, and Adam. And so you just see the silhouettes at first, but then the screen raises up, and when the beat hits, when the chorus comes in, the lights all of a sudden come on, and there's U2 in all their glory, and the crowd went crazy. But then there was a brief moment, because the first two songs are off the new album, so I had a brief thought for a second. Wait, it's called the Experience and Innocence Tour. Are they only going to play songs off the two most recent albums? Because, I liked them, but they weren't my favorites, I need, some Joshua Tree.
Where the streets have no names.
Yeah, I need some Achtung Baby in there.
Yeah.
Some Unforgettable Fire, I don't know. Play some of the older stuff.
Some Batman Forever soundtrack.
They did, though. They
Yeah.
totally did. They totally played Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me.
Yeah.
Which
They played it a lot in concert.
which surprised me because I don't... Batman Forever soundtrack, not really one of U2's biggest albums.
I think Bono likes the jacket. Did he wear the jacket?
He had the... I don't know about a jacket, but he had the... He did the full Mephisto transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had the top hat and everything, so
Right.
that was cool.
I think Bono enjoys that aspect of it. When I saw him when they did the 360, the stage went green and question marks went up and all this.
That's cool.
So
That's really cool.
I think he likes the theatrics of performing that song live.
Yeah.
So I think that's why that is a set standard for the last 20 years when you go to see U2.
But yeah, speaking of theatrics, there was a lot of it in that concert. Yeah, they did a good mix of playing a lot of the more recent stuff. They did, I think, 7 songs off of Songs of Experience alone. But and yeah, they combined a lot of their recent stuff with some of the old favorites like Vertigo, With or Without You, It's a Beautiful Day, all that good stuff. No Joshua Tree though. Unfortunately, no, I was expecting Where the Streets Have No Name, and I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I thought for sure that was going to be the encore, but no, they didn't play anything off of that album, which kind of stinks because it's my favorite. But
What was the encore?
one from Achtung Baby,
Yeah.
followed by Love Is Bigger Than Anything in Its Way, off of Song of Experience, and then ended with 13. Which is also from the new album.
They didn't do All I Want Is You?
I don't think so.
Last time I saw him, I've told this story on the show before, but last time I saw him, they do the encore. Then Bono kind of looks down to the rows right in front of him. And then you say, well, actually, they're leaving the stage. The Edge is left. The band's leaving the stage, and Bono's kind of on the front row, and he looks, and then he yells back to the band, and they come back. And you see security push a guy up on stage, and he was blind, and Bono's talking to him, and so they get him a guitar, and they hand him a guitar, and they end with Bono performing "All I Want with You." All I want is you with this blind fan from the audience. Yeah, I'm sure he's a friend too.
That's
this
rad.
blind fan. Yeah, this friend. Yeah, that was really cool. And that was how it ended.
Yeah, it sounds rad. Mm-hmm. You'll find I use the word rad unironically.
Like you're from the 80s?
Like
we did back in the 80s?
Which is weird because I wasn't alive in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But, if something's rad, something's rad.
As you'll get older, I think you'll learn what we all know. The 80s quite possibly was the best pop culture decade.
I mean, Ready Player One exists for a reason. Hello.
Yeah. It's either the 80s or the 50s. I think that's over, at least in the next 100 years, that will be the most influential 2 decades of the 20th century as far as pop culture. Obviously, if you want to talk history, that's a whole different conversation. But as far as pop culture, I think it will be the 50s and the 80s. Because I think the 50s was the dawn of the young consumer, and you started to see actual marketing towards a younger generation, young people controlling the money, things being targeted to them. And I think the 80s was the culmination of that.
And that's how I get Mad Men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
We'll call back to last episode.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, my last episode. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the U2 show.
Yes, it was incredible. I 2 favorite songs that it did, I gotta say, Vertigo and Pride in the Name of Love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, the first, Vertigo was just awesome, and Pride was it was genuinely moving to see that on stage.
They didn't do anything from the October album.
I don't know about that. I'm not familiar with that one.
Every now and then they'll pull
October.
every now and then they'll pull a track off that album and perform it live. That predates the Joshua Tree, so it's some of their super early stuff.
I gotta look this up now. I don't know for sure if they played any songs from that, but no, it doesn't look like it.
And
Sorry.
Scarlet's usually the one they pull.
I don't know that one, so I'm not sure, but I don't think so.
Well, good show. You know, they played The Edge and Bono both showed up at Robert's Western World on Broadway right after the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Went in and played a set there.
Oh, also, speaking of The Edge, another thing I did this week was I went and checked out that documentary you recommended me, It Might Get Loud.
Oh,
with,
yeah.
Edge, Jimmy Page, and Jack White. And that was a lot of fun.
You enjoyed that?
Yeah, it was really cool seeing these 3 great guitarists from different generations coming together to discuss their craft.
Mm-hmm. And see Jack White put a kid in a guitar case.
Yep, that too.
Yep.
That
yeah.
too.
That Jack White.
Oh, that old scalawag, that rascal. You never know where you're gonna get with them white boys.
That's true. You don't. Yeah. Well, don't forget there's that other U2 documentary too, Rattle and Hum.
Rattle and Hum. I thought you said it was Joshua Tree.
Rattle and see. Listening back, I was wrong. It was Rattle and Hum.
What? You were wrong.
I was wrong. It's Rattle and Hum.
I didn't realize that was possible.
Yeah.
It's your podcast.
I mean, it happens from time to time. But yeah, Rattle and Hum is the film.
You're just pulling my mind right now. This is like discovering Santa doesn't exist.
Well,
you could be wrong about things.
hey. We don't like to spoil things here.
Oh, sorry. Sorry for all 10 and under listeners.
What's our biggest demographic? So what else you got going on the last couple of weeks? Anything?
Of course, foreshadowing the big topic this week a little bit, I've been reading a lot of comics, and so that has inspired me to kind of get back into comics because I've kind of fallen out of the game for a while, but I've finally, after a few months hiatus, I've rediscovered my first great love, and I've kind of been catching up on some recent comics that I missed, including Amazing Spider-Man number 800, which Adam talked about last time.
You've read?
Yes, I've read the entire thing in full. The final showdown between Spider-Man and the Norman Osborn Carnage team-up, the Red Goblin, as the conclusion to the Go Down Swinging storyline, which is also the grand finale of longtime writer Dan Slott's run on Spider-Man, which has lasted since... dang it, I wonder how many years it's been. Long time. I think issue 648 was the beginning of his run. Like, honestly, it was
About 100 episodes or so?
something like that. 2010, since November 2010 is how long he's been on the book, and it was the start of that run, the big time storyline. That was what got me into like keeping up with comics back in, I guess, all the way back in middle school. So yeah, this was a very nostalgic event for me, seeing the end of the run on Amazing Spider-Man that first got me like properly into comics.
Oh, that's cool.
And
so it's pretty special for you.
Yeah, it was a special issue for me, and also just a great story in general. Like, there's a lot of people, a lot of Spider-Man fans even, who aren't very fond of Dan Slott, of his writing, but honestly, like, I love him. He's like one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man writers. And we're also going to be talking about some more of his work later on the podcast. Spoiler.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and talk about what the topic's going to be today.
My assignment for this week was to put together another top 5 list, not of great TV shows that influenced the current landscape, but of my top 5 personal favorites Marvel crossover events.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And we'll do that next.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Cornflake.
So we host the Flopcast.
We cover nerd and geek subjects of all types, but this is sort of a sillier, goofier side of geekdom, I'd say.
We love to talk about music, especially funny music.
We talk about comic books, conventions.
Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, yeah. I'd say if you're going to put the Flopcast in Brady Bunch terms, we're like the cousin Oliver of podcasting. And we do a ridiculous new Flopcast episode every week.
What is wrong with us?
We really have nothing else to do. We're part of the Earth Station 1 podcast network.
And you can find us at flopcast.net.
So before we get into this week's assignment that involves Marvel crossover events, you have your ranking of your MCU movies. I still haven't done mine. I tried, failed. So I'm curious to hear how you rank the MCU movies, having seen them all thus far.
Yes, I have seen every last one. I have not seen every single Marvel movie because that would require watching Howard the Duck. And I'm not particularly keen on doing that.
It's better than Blade 3.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. And most of the X-Men movies.
Most you say.
Well, the first X-Men's okay. The second one, eh.
I liked X-Men 2.
X2.
I thought it was better than the first one.
Last Stand.
Last Stand, I wouldn't call it great, but I still think it's better than a lot of people think it is.
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
No. I cannot defend that one. I cannot defend that one. That's like the Batman and Robin of Marvel.
It's true. Yeah. It's all pretty bad. Most late 90s superhero stuff was pretty bad.
Yeah, honestly, like, controversial opinion, this might ruffle a few feathers, but I'm not a huge fan, in hindsight, of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Like, I grew up loving them. Like, they're part of what got me into superheroes. Like, that's how I first fell in love with the Spider-Man character, who is, of course, like, still my favorite superhero. My favorite fictional character, really, to this day. Like, Peter's my boy, don't get me wrong. And I love those movies growing up. Even Spider-Man 3, Symbiote Peter dancing to James Brown in the street and all. Like, I still kind of have a soft spot for that one, and in a so bad it's good, The Room kind of way.
Right.
You are tearing me apart, MJ! But yeah, overall, not a huge fan of the... Well, actually, I do still like Spider-Man 1 in that kind of cheesy, comic booky kind of way, but not a fan of Spider-Man 2, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because it's the one that always gets hailed as the best of the trilogy. And like a lot of people still say it's the best Spider-Man movie we've gotten. And I'm like, really?
I do enjoy Spider-Man 2.
I'm like going back and watching it post Homecoming in this post MCU world we live in, like I don't know that it holds up all that well. Like for one thing, I'm not a huge fan of what they did with Dr. Octopus. I feel like making him this sort of misguided, tragic figure was kind of. I get what they tried to do. They wanted to humanize him, but I feel like Doc Ock, like, I don't know that he's like that much of a sympathetic villain. Like he's a crazy, like take over the world revenge kind of guy. Like I don't know that he needs to have like a tragic backstory with a dead wife and such.
Right.
Like,
well,
I'm not a fan of the whole like, oh, it was the arms that made him evil. Not a fan of that.
Oh, yeah, okay. I can get that. I can get on board for that.
Yeah, and
that the arms, the tentacles, independently think.
Why did they need
self-aware?
Why did they need to have artificial intelligence? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And
well, that way you can keep him sympathetic the entire.
I know, like,
the entire movie.
But like I said, I feel like that was kind of a misstep.
Mm-hmm.
Also, not. I think the Peter MJ romance is at its worst in that one. Like they both come off as really unlikable. Like Peter is kind of stalkery. I feel he comes across as kind of entitled to a relationship with MJ after he turned her down at the end of the first one.
Right.
And now that she's moved on, he doesn't want to let her go anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and then you got the whole thing with like MJ is feeling entitled to have like Peter. Why don't you come to my play? Why don't you care about my needs? When like he's busy with his job. Like even though she doesn't know he's Spider-Man. Which, I mean, like, just tell her already. Like, you can trust her. Like, just tell her you're Spider-Man. She'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, she knows he has a job where he needs to be, like, on call at any time to go take pictures of Spider-Man.
Right.
So.
What's your job? I take pictures of Spider-Man.
Well, that's basically all he does, though.
I know.
But, like, they both come off as kind of unsympathetic in that movie. Sorry for that rant.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something we could talk about Spider-Man movies, talk about the Raimi films, talk about the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies.
I have a soft spot for those. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man is my second favorite romantic comedy.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna table this discussion and come back to it because we could go the rest of the hour about this.
Behind the Princess Bride, just for the record.
Okay, that's a good number one.
Yes.
Let's get your MCU list.
Yes. Back on topic here.
Are you going to go from first to last or last to first?
I'm going to go favorite to least favorite.
Okay. All right.
Now, keep in mind, this is my personal preference, not a objective, like the ones I think are the best in terms of like filmmaking kind of way. Number one, personal favorite, Avengers Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Spider-Man Homecoming. Because like I said, Peter's my boy.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite character. Number three, Thor Ragnarok. Number four, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Number five, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Because, like I said, I just think the overall story is better than the first one. Number six, Black Panther. Number seven, Captain America Civil War. Number eight, kind of a controversial pick here, Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, that is controversial.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, I am an die-hard Ultron apologist till the end. Like, that is my hill that I'm going to die on for the MCU.
Uh-huh.
I just feel like I get why a lot of people don't like it because so much of it can... I guess I can see how it can feel disjointed to people, like a lot of it being devoted to setting up other movies instead of just spending time telling its story. But I think it does take enough time to tell its own story. And I think the story it tells is pretty good. I think Ultron is an underrated Marvel villain. I really like James Spader's portrayal, and I think it had a really good story arc for Tony, sort of exploring his own inner demons, which, in hindsight, I think kind of makes him more of a foil to Thanos, because they're both very tragic figures who have lost so much, and they start to go down a very similar path of taking extreme measures and kind of going in a dark place in order to protect what they love. And so I think, like, personally, I think Age of Ultron is made better by Infinity War in hindsight.
Right.
But that's a rant for another day. I just think it's a really fun movie that kind of captures the Avengers comic book spirit. Like, it's the only movie where we see the Avengers working together as a team from beginning to end.
Right.
And so I think it's a lot of fun with, like, the character interactions there. A lot of good action, character moments, comedy. I just think it's a really fun movie, but I get why other people don't like it. So that's enough of a tangent there. Moving on. Number 9, Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Number 10, The Avengers. Number 11, Doctor Strange. Number 12, Captain America, The First Avenger. Number 13, Iron Man. Number 14, Ant-Man. Number 15, Thor. Number 16, Iron Man 3. Number 17, The Incredible Hulk, which I hate that I have to put it that low because I honestly like Hulk more than a lot of people do, but it's still like one of the lesser ones in the MCU.
Of the two Hulk movies in the last 20 years, it's the best.
Oh yeah, there's no Gamma Poodles in this one.
Nope.
Yeah. Number 18, Iron Man 2. And number 19, of course, Thor: The Dark World. I'm sorry. I was
The perennial last MCU movie, everyone's least favorite.
Like, I was an apologist for that movie when it came out, but then Ragnarok happened and did everything I liked about Dark World except better. I think there are some parts that I like about Dark World, though. Loki had a really good arc in that movie. I really liked it had the most Warriors 3 and Lady Sif action, which we probably won't be getting anymore, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm sorry. That's about all I can get. That's all the good things.
Well,
I can say about it.
I think your list shows what I think we all know is that Marvel has just continued to improve in their storytelling and their production of these films. When you look at how high some of the more recent ones rank on your list,
Yeah.
and then you look and you think, you know, like the original Iron Man, Thor, Cap, all, though not bad movies, tend to be lower on people's list.
Like a below average MCU movie is still like a good 8 out of 10.
Yeah, well, except Thor: Dark World.
That's greatly below average.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's like the only like not great movie on the list.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's just it was just a troubled movie.
Like a lot of production issues.
Yeah. Plus, you had who was the director of the original Thor? Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
So come on, you got that guy directing the original Thor.
Yeah.
And then it was I forget who was supposed to direct Thor: The Dark World. Wasn't it? Who directed Wonder Woman? I can't remember her name.
I'm misplacing her name. Hold on, I'll look it up.
But I think the Wonder Woman director was supposed to direct
Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, she was supposed to direct Thor: The Dark World.
Really? I
and
didn't
then
know
left.
that.
Yep, I think that's what I heard. But all right, let's jump into your crossovers.
Yes, my top 5 personal favorite Marvel crossovers. Not just crossovers, but crossover events.
Right, crossover events. Sorry.
Like, there's a distinction there. Like, a crossover can just be, like, Iron Man showing up in Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But a crossover event, we're talking, like, the big blockbuster miniseries of all the heroes coming together.
Right. Versus a special appearance. Like when, say, Spider-Man starts hanging out with Vision and Scarlet Witch in their own comic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
which did happen.
Or Manimal showing up on My Mother the Car.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd watch that. I'd buy that for $1.
When are we getting our Manimal reboot? That's what I want to know.
Hey, it will happen eventually. Eventually,
Someday.
everything gets remade.
Yes.
So crossover events, Marvel crossover events, number 5.
Okay, number 5 is kind of a recent one, last 5 years. Published from August to November 2013, written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Jim Chung, Infinity.
Okay.
Not Infinity War, not Infinity Gauntlets, just Infinity. There's a lot of Marvel series with the word Infinity in the title, most of which written by Jim Starlin, so, like, this is just Infinity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no, like, the Infinity Gems aren't even involved, so, like, there's no real reason for it to have that title, except for the fact
They love it.
that Thanos is involved.
Uh-huh. So what's a brief synopsis of this story?
Well, the problem here is that any Marvel story written by Jonathan Hickman can't really have a brief synopsis, just because all of his Marvel stories are tied into just this single overarching narrative that culminates with another story that I might be talking about later. But Infinity is sort of the first big arc of his run on Avengers and New Avengers, 2 separate series sort of intertwining with each other to form one big story. And so the plot here is that the Avengers are caught between fighting 2 separate alien invasions. The first of which is taking on a new threat known as the Builders, which is this ancient alien civilization that they're, in hindsight, they're almost kind of similar to what Thanos became in Infinity War. They want to achieve order and peace throughout the universe by conquering different systems, sort of purging the ones they see as too dangerous to allow to live. And right now, their number one target is Earth because of other events that have been taking place in Hickman's Avengers series called the Incursions, which is... This is going to take, like, 10 whole minutes to explain, I'm sorry, but, like, it's important for stuff that happens later. Like, the Incursions are basically, like, the walls between the different worlds of the multiverse are breaking down, and so at random points, like, another Earth from a different universe will appear in the sky of Earth 616, which is the main Marvel universe. And so what happens during an incursion is if the two Earths end up colliding, they are destroyed along with their entire respective universes. But the only way for one of the Earths to survive is to destroy the other one, which will take its respective universe along with it. So either both Earths die or one does. So that creates...
So it's a bit of a crisis.
Yes, a crisis on several different universes,
Yes, it
one
would
might
be.
say.
One might say.
So yeah, that creates a sort of ethical issue for the Avengers. And there's this like secret council of different leaders in the superhero community, which is sort of semi-sarcastically dubbed the Illuminati by Tony Stark. And so this superhero Illuminati comes together to figure out, okay, what are we doing about these incursions? Are we willing to sacrifice another Earth with its own Avengers, its own people, its own heroes, in order to save our own universe? And you've got like Black Panther, Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Namor. Like they all have their own idea of what to do to deal with the situation. And Captain America, he refuses to go through with destroying Never Earth, even if it means saving their own world. And he ends up having to get mind wiped by Doctor Strange because otherwise he would try to take down the rest of the Illuminati to prevent them from doing what quote unquote has to be done. I don't think any of that actually has to do with the Infinity storyline, but I'm sorry, I got sidetracked.
That's okay. I mean,
There's a lot
like
of
you said,
story.
there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
So anyway.
And you are laying the groundwork for something I'm sure comes up later.
I am.
Yeah.
This isn't the last Hickman story that's going to be on this list. So the Builders are trying to invade Earth to destroy it in order to save the universe from the incursions. So, again, kind of like Thanos, and they're all about creating peace and order through force, and they want to destroy Earth for the greater good. And so, meanwhile, the real Thanos, the comic book death-worshipping version, is on his way to Earth for reasons that I'm not going to get into because they're kind of spoilers, but he's looking for something or someone in particular.
That Thanos,
Yes.
always on the search for something.
Yeah, it's always something with them Titan boys, let me tell you. And so Thanos is invading Earth with his fleet, and the Illuminati, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Beast of the X-Men, and Black Bolt of the Inhumans, they all have to work together to stop Thanos. And also, this is the first appearance of the Black Order, who are Thanos' henchmen in the Infinity War movie. Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Ebony Maw, a.k.a. Squidward, and Black Dwarf, who was the big guy with the axes. He was called Cull Obsidian in the movie. I guess they didn't want to use the name Black Dwarf because that, taken out of context, that's a weird name for a character.
Yeah, they just have a lot of overtones to it.
But it's supposed to be like a red dwarf star, you know?
Right.
he's a big, strong space guy.
Right.
And there's another member who wasn't in the movie, Supergiant, who is super but is not a giant. So we got all kinds of confusing names here. But she's like this blue-skinned telepath. She looks kind of like Nebula, actually, but different character. So yeah, the Black Order, this is their big first appearance, and like they're awesome. I feel like they're characters that don't get enough use in the comics. I felt like they could have used more screen time in the Infinity War movie, but I thought they were super cool there as well.
Yeah, they did really well with that group in the film.
Especially Corvus Glaive, the goblin-looking guy with the spear, and Proxima Midnight, who was the big blue lady who also has a spear. And it's never expanded on in the movie, but they're actually a married couple in the comics.
Yeah.
So I think that's like kind of adorable in a weird, messed up way because they're both like psychotic mass murderers, but they also love each other.
Yeah, and Ebony Maw almost stole the show.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I love he's great in the comics too with his whole like Shakespearean grandiose "Rejoice, you have been saved by the great tyrant," like those mannerisms.
Right,
and he gets a lot of cool moments in the comics too.
So what year are we talking?
2013.
2013.
Post Thanos' big post-credits appearance in Avengers. So Marvel's already starting to build the Thanos hype.
Right.
Which is continuing to this day, which is as it should be, because Thanos is awesome.
Yeah. What's next on your list? Number 4.
Yes, number 4.
Crossover events.
Yes.
Marvel.
Spider-Man, The Clone Conspiracy.
Oh my... You love this?
It's not what you think.
Oh, no, I read a lot of this.
It's not the Clone Saga. This isn't the 90s.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Oh, then continue. Because that's when I stopped reading Spider-Man in the 90s. Yeah. Because I just got fed up with the clone stuff.
That's... As you should have been. But this is not the Clone Saga.
Oh, okay.
This is entirely different.
Then continue.
Published October 2016 to May 2017.
Okay, there you go.
So recent, not the 90s. Okay. Cannot stress this enough.
Okay, continue.
I'm sorry for the confusion there. Written by Dan Slott, art by Jim Chung. So yeah, this is part of the also divisive Dan Slott run on Spider-Man, which, like I said, I have very much of a soft spot for. It's what got me into comics. And this is, I think, might be my favorite section of his run because it's dedicated to taking the infamous premise of the Clone Saga, which do we need to get into that for the uninitiated?
Maybe another day.
Okay.
Basically, here's the idea. They wanted to put the idea that perhaps there was a Spider-Man clone in the world of Spider-Man in the comics in the 90s. And then they just went nuts with it. And then you get shoot-off characters from it, and you don't know which one's the real Peter Parker.
Remember Kane?
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, it's really bad. If you want to know more, find out more about Spider-Man's clones, visit your local library.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a wrapped up just last year, a little over a year ago, written by Dan Slott, and this arc was dedicated to basically redeeming the idea of a clone storyline in Spider-Man. Because what happens is Peter Parker, who due to reasons too convoluted to detail right now, he is now the CEO of Parker Industries. He's basically become the new Tony Stark. He's this like worldwide tech mogul. He's got running like charities all over the world. Things are looking up for Peter Parker. And then things start to go bad when he discovers that his old enemy, the Jackal, is back at it again with his clones. They call him the Jackal. Little West Wing reference there for you. I don't know how big the Marvel Comics West Wing fandoms cross over, but there's dozens of us, I'm sure.
Probably
dozens.
less than the NFL.
NFL Super Pro, that's right. Continuity. So yeah, it turns out that some of Spider-Man's old enemies, such as Dr. Octopus and the Rhino, have started coming back from the dead. And the mastermind behind this is none other than his old enemy, the Jackal, who of course was the big bad of the infamous Clone Saga, which is a different story from. Can't stress that enough.
Right.
But yeah, the Jackal, well, before he was just his motivations were unclear. Like, he was crazy. Like, he was obsessed with Peter Parker. He was in love with Gwen Stacy, and so he kept bringing them back as clones. And then it snowballed from there, and everything stopped making sense. But here, Jackals had kind of a change of heart. Instead of just clones for clones' sake, he started using his cloning technology, or a modified version of it, to literally resurrect the dead, which, of course, is nothing new in comics, but he's done something that doesn't happen, which is bringing back some of the good guys, some of Spider-Man's old supporting characters from the past who have practically perished as a result of Peter's numerous failures over the years. We're talking Martha and Billy Connors, the Lizard's family, George Stacy, who died in battle against Dr. Octopus, and, of course, Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man's first love. My favorite Spider-Man love interest, by the way. Like, honestly, like Gwen is probably like my favorite female Marvel character. Like, she's like in my top 3 all-time Marvel characters, along with Spider-Man and Doctor Doom, who like, well, you'll hear about Doctor Doom later, to believe me. But yeah, that's due to one of 2 things. Number one, Emma Stone's awesome portrayal of her in the Amazing movies, in which she is like pretty much everything MJ isn't. Like, she is like smart, she's funny, like she wants to help people, she has a strong sense of justice like Peter, like she actually helps save the day, like even going as far as to like take on the Lizard with like an aerosol flamethrower. Yeah. Like Gwen, like she ain't gonna take no crap from nobody. She is gonna like kick names and take butt, as Mantis would put it. Yeah, Gwen's out there getting it done. And also, I would be remiss not to mention the very awesome Spider-Gwen comic. Yes. Which tied into Spider-Verse, another crossover that we can call Spider-Verse an honorable mention for this list.
Right. Peter Parker is the amazing Spider-Ham. Yes. In the Spider-Verse. Yep. And Spider-Gwen, alternate universe where Gwen ends up getting bit by the radioactive spider instead of Peter, and becomes Spider-Woman with the coolest costume in Marvel Comics history. And yeah, I was just about to say, and created a whole new Marvel industry of fan art. Yes. The Spider-Gwen. Yes, like I love like her costume with like the black and white color scheme, like the hoodie. Like I love it. Spider-Gwen is awesome. I love Gwen Stacy in all her incarnations more than I probably should. It's probably not a very healthy fixation. And moving on, Spider-Gwen actually shows up in this storyline working with another Spider-Man supporting character, Kane, a.k.a. the Scarlet Spider. Yep. Used to be this like super 90s, edgy, like he looked like the villain from like a bad 90s JRPG is what he looked like, with like the mummy bandages, like a tattered scarf, and like the long hair, everything like that. He looked like a bad Final Fantasy villain. But later on, he got brought back by Dan Slott and became the Scarlet Spider in a really good series that I really need to check out at some point. But Kane and Spider-Gwen show up trying to put an end to the Jackal's plan, even though it seems well-intentioned at first, trying to make up for his past mistakes by bringing back everyone that's ever died throughout Spider-Man's adventures. He's really looks like he's turned over a new leaf, like he wants to help people, even if he is sort of going all Frankenstein, like meddling in God's domain. We're trying to bring back the dead. It goes back to what I was talking about last week with villains that have sympathetic human motivations. Like, you don't agree with them, but you understand why they're doing what they do, which is a very different take on the Jackal than the old, like, crazy, like, obsessed with cloning Peter Parker, like that old interpretation of character, almost as if it's a different person behind the mask. You'll have to read the story and find out for yourself. And also, speaking of masks, like, I love the Jackal's redesign by Jim Chung in the story, by the way. He's got, like, instead of, like, looking like what is described in this story as a fuzzy Yoda and a Speedo, like, very 70s looking design. Instead, he's got, like, a nice red 3-piece suit and tie with an Anubis mask, which, of course, ties into the Jackal motif while also tying into the whole resurrection, life and death thing, because Anubis, Egyptian death god,
that kind of thing. And I've ranted about the story enough, but I'm going to end by saying that what made it a top 5 contender for me is that it's a great exploration of the character of Peter Parker and what makes him so great.
Mm-hmm.
It delves into his guilt complex, his sense of great responsibility, one might say, and his urge to save everyone he can to make up for the people he hasn't saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see him confronting the idea of bringing back all the people he couldn't save. Ultimately, in the end, Peter decides that it's not his place to play God. He doesn't deserve the power over life and death, and so he decides to honor the memory of those he's lost, not by clinging to the past, not by trying to bring them back, but by honoring their memory, by moving forward, coping with their deaths, and trying to save more people in the future, continuing with his mission to protect everyone he can in the honor of those he couldn't save.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he's my boy. Gotta love him.
That's number 2.
Yes. Actually, it's number 4. I'm counting down.
Oh, number 4. Okay.
Number 3 is, of course, I had to bring it up in light of recent events. Published from July to December 1991. Written by Jim Starlin. Art by George Perez and Ron Lim. And of course, it had to be The Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes. Yep. This is a biggie.
Yes. Not to be confused with the actual Infinity War comic, which is different.
Right.
The Infinity War movie is actually a better adaptation of Infinity Gauntlet than it is Infinity War. Try to wrap your head around that.
Yeah. Infinity Gauntlet is basically just the hunt for the gauntlet, not the actual war for the gauntlet.
I actually, kinda, but like, Infinity Gauntlet issue 1 begins with Thanos already having all the gems in his possession. He's completed the gauntlet by the time the story begins. The actual hunt for the gems, they're called gems, by the way, the Infinity Gems, not the Infinity Stones in the comic. So I'm not sure why they changed that from the movie, but there you go. I'll probably alternate between gems and stones over this podcast. But yeah, Thanos' quest for the gems was covered in a 2-issue miniseries published right before Infinity Gauntlet, appropriately titled Thanos Quest. And I wish that it was actually part of the same series because it is criminally underrated and overlooked. And it shows just like what has some great Thanos moments, shows why he is such a great villain because of like not only like his like the kind of crazy stuff he does, like he is unstoppable in getting what he wants, but he's also like a very interesting villain psychologically, like his philosophy, like what he wants to accomplish, stuff like that.
Right.
And so we open with a familiar setup. Thanos uses the Infinity Gems to snap his fingers and wipe out half the universe in order to please his true love, Death. And she is like not wanting any of it. She is not giving Thanos the time of day. So this is the story of Thanos trying to win over the cosmic entity he loves. And it doesn't go so well for him. And so Thanos is probably the main character of the story, despite being the villain. One could call him the Walter White of the Marvel Universe.
And much like you see that Thanos is the main character in the Infinity War movie, so you kind of see that the comics that he's the main character of the comic that it came from, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But the main hero of the story is one who hasn't yet made the leap to the MCU, Adam Warlock, whose backstory I will not and cannot get into now because it is very confusing. Basically, he's this like golden-skinned alien guy who travels the universe. Like he was basically created to be Space Jesus. Like I'm not kidding about that. Like the writer of the original Adam Warlock series, Roy Thomas, he was listening to the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack a lot, and so he decided, you know what, I'm gonna make my next character Space Jesus.
Yeah.
Like that's literally his creative process there.
Thus
So
you get Adam Warlock.
yes.
So who are some of the characters that you see cross over into this?
Conveniently for the movies, most of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four were
Yeah,
conveniently
exactly.
wiped out by the Snapshire.
That's why I ask.
So
Yeah.
like, and that was before there were any rights problems. So that was kind of a happy accident for the Infinity War movie. They didn't actually, they actually had most of the rights to most of the characters that showed up, except for like Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. And what was the year that this came out?
1991.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you got like Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, Doctor Doom, our first appearance by my favorite Marvel villain, working with the heroes. Because think about Doctor Doom, he's a bad guy, probably the worst guy, aside from like Red Skull, who is an actual Nazi.
Yeah, it's true.
But the thing about Doctor Doom is that even though he wants to take over the world, like he also wants to protect the world. So it can't rule Earth if there is no Earth. So he's worked together with the heroes in order to take down Thanos and hopefully get his own hands on the Infinity Gauntlet in the process, which, spoiler alert, doesn't go too well for the good Doctor.
Yeah. Let's move on to number 2 on your list.
Yes. Published May 1984 to April 1985. Written by Jim Shooter. Art by Mike Zeck and Bob Layton. Secret Wars.
Oh, here we go.
The first big Marvel crossover.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking old school right here. Of all the stories on this list, this is probably the most beginner-friendly, even though it's the oldest, and there's a lot of 80s cheese in this one right here. Like, I think, like, at one point, She-Hulk actually uses the term totally tubular to the max.
Yep. Well,
This is 80s-tastic right here.
it's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is great. So, like, you don't need to know a whole lot of backstory about the characters. There's heroes, there's villains, there's a team of heroes and a team of villains who get summoned by this mysterious cosmic entity known as the Beyonder, who puts together a patchwork planet called Battle World out of fragments of different planets throughout the universe, including Denver, Colorado. It gets transported to this alien Battle World, and here on Battle World, he's holding a secret war, one might call it, between the heroes and the villains because he wants to understand the human concept of desire. He wants to understand what motivates these heroes and these villains to get what they want. And he says that whoever vanquishes their foes will have their heart's desire granted. And so you have the heroes and villains just fighting the heck out of each other. Doesn't get more classic comic booky than that. But the thing that makes Secret Wars stand out, instead of just being another hero versus villain story, is the fact that we get some super awesome, iconic comic book moments right here. Like, this series, it's a pretty big part of comic book history, to be honest, because, like, look at this right here. Like, I know that there's no video on the podcast, but JP sees what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
The cover of Secret Wars #4. Beneath 150 billion tons stands the Hulk, and he's not happy. We have the Hulk lifting up a literal mountain range, which was dropped on the heroes by Molecule Man, who, like you don't need to know much about him other than, like, he controls molecules. He does what his name says.
Yeah.
And so, like, Hulk literally lifting an entire mountain range and managing to, like, pick it up out of sheer anger. Hulk is the strongest one there is. You wouldn't like him when he's angry.
I would say that probably if you've never read Secret Wars, it's the fun of Civil War, the movie. Like, a lot of the fun, one of the reasons why I love Civil War so much is they did such a good job integrating the heroes into one movie.
Yes.
And that's kind of what the Secret Wars did in the comic books in the 1980s.
Everybody gets their big hero moments.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what the story is. It's just the fun of seeing all these heroes interact with each other.
Yes.
So I definitely recommend Secret Wars.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this is the origin of Spider-Man's black suit, a.k.a. the symbiote, a.k.a. Venom.
Right.
Like, it didn't crash land in a meteorite like in Spider-Man 3. He gets it on Battle World.
Right.
And one last thing on Secret Wars. Like, I have to mention Doctor Doom. Like I said, he's my favorite Marvel villain, and this is one of his finest moments right here because, like, he is the leader of the villain faction, and all throughout the story, he doesn't care about beating the heroes and winning the Beyonder's prize. He's gunning for the Beyonder himself.
Yeah. Because
he wants to beat up the biggest guy in the prison yard and, like, steal his power, to use a really crappy analogy. Like, he wants to take the Beyonder's almost godlike power and make it his own. And somehow he actually succeeds in doing this and becomes the most powerful being in the Earth 616 universe. And he like Doctor Doom like comes down like with all this phenomenal cosmic power, to quote the genie from Aladdin, and he offers the heroes a deal like, hey, I won, work for me or there's going to be consequences. And Captain America's like, like he's got to stand up to the villain. He's like, no, we'll never join you, we believe in justice. And Doctor Doom's like, okay, and he just snaps his fingers and all the heroes die in an explosion.
Yeah.
But of course, because he's not experienced with his cosmic power, he ends up accidentally, subconsciously bringing the heroes back, and it's his own self-doubt and his belief that, like, he didn't earn his victory, like he didn't conquer the universe because he's Doctor Doom, because he's the best. He had to cheat and steal someone more strong, more powerful than him, someone else's strength. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I got tongue-tied for a second there, but yeah, Doom, he ends up being defeated by his own self-doubt, his own inner demons, and that's what allows the heroes to triumph.
Yeah.
But all in all, like, great Doctor Doom story, great story in general, just classic heroes versus villains. It doesn't get much better than that. Except it does get much better than that.
And that brings us to number 1.
Yes, my number 1 favorite Marvel crossover event storyline. Written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Esad Ribic. I had to look up like how to pronounce that name, but like it's Croatian, I believe. But he's an awesome artist. Published in May 2015 to January 2016. Secret Wars 2015.
Really?
What could be better than Secret Wars? Another Secret Wars.
Right.
So here's why I brought up the whole deal with the incursions earlier. Because this event is a culmination of everything that Jonathan Hickman has been writing for like, I want to say like 5-10 years, a really long time. Culmination of a bunch of different stories, like a run on Fantastic Four, a run on S.H.I.E.L.D. It's the finale to the Avengers, New Avengers, all that stuff. So it turns out the incursions, the different Earths in the multiverse colliding, that was the handiwork of the Beyonders. Not just one Beyonder, but there's multiple of that same species, and they're putting together like another cosmic science experiment by seeing, hey, what happens if we just destroy the entire multiverse? And so they're breaking down the walls between the different Earths, and the incursions are happening. But, as it turns out, while the heroes are struggling to find a way to save their own world, and there's this ethical argument taking place between the heroes, like, do we have the right to destroy another Earth to save our own? Meanwhile, Doctor Doom, of course, the true savior of Earth, he is out there getting stuff done. He is willing to do what it takes to protect his world. He is going around throughout the multiverse, destroying different universes before the incursions can happen, in hopes that maybe, just maybe, his world can be saved and be the last Earth standing. And so history repeats itself as Doctor Doom, with some unexpected help from Doctor Strange, ends up defeating the Beyonders, destroying them, and taking their power. So Doctor Doom, he's gotten his cosmic power back, and so he uses it as Earth 616 is dying. He uses his power to take the remnants of the multiverse and craft them into a new singular world made up of remnants of other worlds throughout the multiverse. And this new planet, this last world in the multiverse, is dubbed, of course, Battle World, because this is a new Secret Wars, and Doctor Doom, like the man who pretty much saved everything, like all that's left of the multiverse is here because Doom did what he had to do. Like, he is reigning over this new Battle World as this God Emperor. He is worshipped as a deity, as a savior of everything that is, by the inhabitants of this new Battle World, and he's wiped everybody's memories of any Earth that came before. So as far as everybody knows, this world is all there is, and Doom created it. But of course, because there has to be a conflict in the story, and obviously the Marvel Universe is back to normal now, there's a small ragtag group of heroes that survive, thanks to Reed Richards. You've got Spider-Man, Peter Parker, of course, Star-Lord, because Guardians of the Galaxy is popular right now, Black Panther, and Thor, who probably should have brought this up because it's not Thor Odinson. It's the mysterious female Thor who her secret identity was a big secret for a while, but then it turned out it was Jane Foster, and I should have not brought this up. Comics are confusing. I'm sorry. I'm tired. But yeah, the heroes have to find a way to stop Doom and set the multiverse back to normal, because Doctor Doom, even though he did technically save what's left of the multiverse, he has still set himself up as this God Emperor, and he's still a tyrant who kills and tortures anyone who won't bow down to him. Because ultimately, the core theme of the story, it's an idealistic conflict. It's about hope versus despair, believing in life versus believing in death. You have Doctor Doom, who thinks that his way is the only way to save the universe, the multiverse, whatever you want to call it. He thinks that the only way to get things done is to use tyranny and oppressive methods to control everything so nothing bad can happen. Meanwhile, you've got Reed Richards, who, in the climax of the story, he tells Doom, you're so afraid of losing the things you love that you hold them too tightly. So ultimately, yeah, I'm probably not doing a great job of explaining, like, the core themes of the story, what makes them so great, but ultimately, like, it's all about never believing that there is no hope, always believing that the world can be saved, and that is what makes the heroes so awesome. That probably made no sense. I'm sorry.
Well, the important thing is it's your personal favorite crossover event of all time.
Yes, and it's got, like, you thought Secret Wars had some crazy, awesome action moments. Like, this story is on a whole other level. You've got a giant version of the Thing, Ben Grimm, fighting Doctor Doom's pet Galactus.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a giant Groot made out of the Asgardian World Tree. You've got, like, the final battle, Doctor Doom with his Cosmic Beyonder powers fighting Black Panther with an Infinity Gauntlet. This story is insane. It's comic books, but it's got, like, a good story with interesting themes beyond that. Mm-hmm. So, Secret Wars 2015, my number one personal favorite Marvel crossover event.
Well, as always, a fantastic job.
Yes, thank you very much.
Researching, well-researched, expertly delivered.
Yes, thank you. And
do we want to tease what your next assignment is going to be? Or do we want to wait?
Actually, I can go ahead and say it now.
Okay.
In a few, about 3 weeks, I'd say, my next assignment, I'll be turning that in, which is the top 5 best anime for beginners to the genre.
So if you don't know anything about anime, this is going to be the podcast you need to listen to.
Well, I should say medium rather than genre, because it's in a form of art, never in a specific genre. But you know what I mean. Best anime for beginners.
Right. Anime for beginners.
Yes.
We'll just leave it at that.
Anime 101, Professor Barrett.
Perfect. That's what the episode's going to be called.
See you then.
Thanks for coming by.
My pleasure as always. Hope I did a good job.
You did a fantastic job, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
An amazing job, I might say.
Oh, one might say that.
A spectacular job. Incredible. Uncanny job.
An infinite job.
Ah, there we go.
This has been a production of the Adam and JP family of on-demand talk radio.
AdamandJP.com.
Right now.